Hello everyone, I'm Kavneet Sani from Business Economics and I'm representing Team F. I'm here to discuss a topic that has touched the lives of millions Canadians, that is unemployment in Canada during and after pandemic. So, can you guys believe that it's been more than 3 years since the pandemic started and this has brought so many drastic change in the people that had jobs. So, if we dive into this journey, we'll look at the twists and turns that this COVID brought to job market. So at the start of pandemic, like in 2020, there were only 11% people that were jobless. But after pandemic started, which was just starting, like in April 2020, almost 22% people were jobless. But by the end of summer in 2020, this figure rose more by 10%, and after summers, 30% people were jobless. So this is quite huge change that COVID brought to the job market. So if we look at the different sectors that people lost job, if we look at the construction basis, around 45,000 people lost their job in the construction area, and in the recreational sector, almost around 16,000 jobs were lost. So if we look at the slide one, this is the data that I collected from Statista, which states that after 2020 in May, the Canada's employment fell by 20%. So overall, 3.4 million jobs were lost. 3.4 million jobs were lost all due to this COVID. So if overall so much of unemployment was caused. So next slide will be taken by my colleague Wasi. He will explain you the background that all this unemployment sector. Thank you.
Okay, so when it comes to the background, like I just want to give an idea. When you see the article which was released in 2021, over there you can see that the after the pandemic, like from 11.9%, it has increased to 22.1%. Like from February to March 2020, it was like peaked to nearly at 30% by the end of the summer 2020, and approximately 5% of the employees were temporarily let go from their own, like from the own companies in between Feb and April 2020. And when you see the article which was released in 2022, since 1990s, men have experienced slightly higher unemployment rates than women, because uh, women are getting a lot of jobs when compared to men's. Like from 1990s, when you see the downfall has been increased and increased, because more women are getting educated, and they're having more employment rate when compared to the men's.
Hello everyone, my name is Oscar Valencia and I'm going to talk about the figure number one, which is the unemployment rate in Canada during 2020 and 2023. According to Statistics Canada, as we can see, the unemployment rate in Canada before the pandemic was around 5.5% in January, and then in February 2020 was also has a minimum increase to 5.7. However, when the pandemic started in March 2020, the inflation rate increased to 8.4%, and during that year, the unemployment rate increased dramatically up to 14% in May. Nevertheless, in the following years, to be more specific, in the year 2020, 2021, the unemployment rate was in January 9.2%, and finally in December was around 6%. Then in January 2022, the inflation rate was 6.5%, and then in December of that same year was around 5%, which is really close to the natural unemployment rate, which is around 6%. Moving to the next figure, which is the figure number 2, is about the consumer price index in Canada during the years 2020 to 2023. In this case, as we can see in the year 2020, this is basically the inflation. So in that year, in the 2020, the inflation was maintained really steady. However, in August of that year, the inflation was negative, and since September of that year, increased dramatically up to around 8% in June 2022. However, since the pandemic end, ended, the inflation decreased up to around 3% or 2.8% in June 2023. Thank you so much.
And I'm going to discuss about some figures and data sets in our project. So let us have a look at the first figure, which shows the inflationary gap. As we all know that inflationary gap are the difference between real GDP and potential GDP at full employment. Uh, in the aggregate expenditure macroeconomic model, reducing inflation requires limiting overall spending in the economy. This can be achieved through fiscal or monetary policies that directly affect the consumption and government spending. The ideal approach here is to lower demand in order to decrease inflation. Let's have a look at another data set which shows the unemployment rate. If we talk about past 3 months, there is a increase of 0.5% in the employment, and there is a huge increase in the percentage in the year 2020. This pattern had not been observed since the early stages of COVID-19, which implies that economic recovery may be slow. If we have a look at another figure which shows the employment rate, it shows a steady trend as the population grows. Despite a growing population, the job market has stayed steady. In July 2023, there was a drop of 6,000 people in both full-time as well as part-time jobs, keeping the overall employment rate unchanged. But when we look at the period of January to July in year 2023, an average of 22,000 jobs were created each month. Similarly, we can see a drop in the year 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we can observe from the figure that as the population grows, the employment rate stays steady. Thank you.
I'm here to conclude the presentation. Myself, Philosopher Tobias. So, we have already delved into the profound impacts of the COVID 19 era on Canada's labour markets, witnessing a shock comparable to that of the Second World War. In just a few months, the unemployment rate surged to a staggering 14%, painting a stark picture of the economic challenges faced during this unprecedented time. In July 2023, the most recent numbers reveal a little increase, with the unemployment rate now standing at 5.5%. This indicates a solid recovery trend, albeit with a little increase from the prior month. Looking ahead to 2023, the average unemployment rate is 5.16%, significantly lower than the natural unemployment rate of 6%. This implies progress, but it also bears a significant implication: the risk of market inflation. In the face of inflationary conditions, macroeconomic models such as aggregate expenditure make an important recommendation: cut expenditure. Aggregate expenditure makes an important recommendation such as cut expenditure so we can manage demand for products and services by reducing overall spending, thus lowering inflation. Furthermore, when enterprises react to swings in demand, this measured strategy might result in a significant increase in employment levels. So, in summary, the strategy strikes a careful balance by not just stabilizing prices but also increasing job opportunities. It contains a strategy approach to inflationary issues, guaranteeing a sustainable economic trajectory. Thank you.